We're going to be building a 5-gallon growing container. It's self-watering. It borrows the technology from the hydroponics wicking system. There are many pros to this design, but here are just a few. Now let's go over the tools and materials needed for this build. 2 5-gallon buckets purchased from Home Depot. You'll want to purchase an aquarium grate from Lowe's. This is not necessary. If you're on a budget, you can use a nursery planter. Just make sure the planters are 3 to 4 inches in diameter, and you'll need to drill holes with a 3/8 drill bit. There will be quite a bit of drilling, so make sure your drill gun can handle the tasks. This is not important to use, but I like using hole saws. I'm going to be using a 4-inch for this task. Don't forget, again, you'll need your drills. You'll need a 3/8 drill bit and a 5/16 drill bit. I also recommend you use a utility knife. You may not be using the knife, but keep it on hand. Now we're going to find the center of the bucket. So we're going to use our measuring tape, and we're going to measure from the sides to the grate. And this particular build was 3 1/4 of an inch. I suggest you use a permanent marker and go ahead and trace a circle around the atrium grate so that you can use this as a reference. Take your 4-inch hole saw and go ahead and drill out the hole. I recommend that you go forward until the hole saw touches the plastic, then put your gun in reverse and then go slowly through until the hole is complete. Now, place the open end of your atrium grate in the hole. Notice how it is loose. You want that. You never want to make it go in if it's snug. There's a chance you could crack the bottom of the bucket. Now we will attach the atrium grate to the bottom of the bucket. To do this, we're going to drill 3 holes around the circumference of the atrium grate. This will allow us to attach the atrium grate to the bucket using zip ties. Now we can use the zip ties to attach the atrium grate to the bucket. What you want to do, this is a tip, is to place your zip ties through the hole from the outside, bring it up underneath, go through the hole of the grate, and you only zip it about 2 clicks, and you want to just stop. Then go do the other 2 and do the exact same thing. Once you have them all in place, then you can go back and tighten them up by hand. Now we will provide the grow system with aeration holes using a 3/8 inch drill bit. There is no right or wrong way of doing this stage. However, I do recommend that you do not press down hard as you're drilling. You just want to use the weight of the drill gun and let the drill bit do the cutting. Now to drill a 1-inch hole in the bottom of the bucket for the fill tube. We are cutting our fill tube to 22 inches. I'm using a PVC pipe. You can use whatever you'd like. What's important to me is that the inner wall of the tube be large enough to allow the watering wand to fit inside it while I walk away and do other things amongst the garden. We're now going to cut a notch in the bottom of the fill tube. This is very important. What this does is keeps the fill tube from ever getting clogged. My tip for you is to use a hacksaw. What you do is you take the hacksaw and you cut horizontally along the pipe about 3/4 of an inch. Maybe a full inch, it's up to you. And then take the top portion of the pipe and cut down, meeting the original horizontal cut. The end result will be a notch that looks just like this. Now, take the fill pipe and place it in the hole you cut earlier. I also recommend that you take a drill bit and you cut 1 hole on each side of the pipe so that you can place zip ties in and securing it to the side of the bucket. Now that we've completed the fill tube, let's move on to placing an overflow hole on the side of the reservoir bucket. If you notice where my thumb's at, you can see a shadow of a line. That shadow line is actually the wicking bucket inside the reservoir bucket. If you could take a magic marker and mark where that shadow line is, that is where you're going to drill using a 3/8 inch drill bit into there. This will be the overflow hole. My personal preference is actually to drill on the side of the bucket that says, "Let's do this." Now that we have completed the wicking bucket and the bucket reservoir, it's time to move on to filling it with a potting mix. It is very important that you understand that you cannot just take your potting mix and dump it into your wicking chamber. I fill my wicking chamber a quarter at a time. So I fill up my chamber with potting mix a quarter way up, and then I moisten it with water, and then I firmly pack it down. And I'll do this again and again until I reach the top of the bucket. I felt it was very important to take the time with this part of the video to show you exactly how you're supposed to set up the wick. Notice I'm not putting a lot of water in there, I'm not drowning it, but I'm focusing the water in the center where the atrium grate is located. Notice how I put my fingers down into the atrium grate and I'm pushing the water down, making sure that the potting mix is getting thoroughly soaked. I then start packing it down. I will now check to make sure that there's wicking action. Watch. You see the moisture come up? That tells me there's wicking action. At this stage, I can move forward, putting more potting mix into the bucket. I'll go up another quarter of the way. Now we add water again. Notice that I'm not overflowing it, I'm just moistening it. After I get to the point where I feel that it is wet enough, I will put my hands down there and I will start to pack it down. Let's now discuss how to set up your grow system. So, let's pretend right now we're going to use this for herbs. What you do is the center would be used for putting your plant food, and the outer edges of the bucket would be used to place your herbs. If you're going to use vegetation that produces fruit, like a tomato, cucumbers, squash, etc., you would then place the food on the outer ring, and in the center you would place your fruit-bearing vegetation. We're actually going to use this particular system for tomatoes. So I'm going to make room on the outer edges for plant food. We're going to make room for the plant food by removing a little bit of the potting mix along the edges of the grow system. You can also do this by just packing it towards the center. This will leave some space around the outer edges. We're making enough room to provide a cup to a cup and a half of organic plant food. The measurements will change depending on what kind of plant food you are using. If you are not using organic and you are using a synthetic, then you definitely want to cut that measurement in half. So instead of using a full cup, you would use a half cup. After spreading out the plant food, take some potting mix and cover up the plant food. This isn't really necessary, but I've always done it for the past 10 years and it's worked fine for me. It's a habit that I've chose to continue. We're almost finished. The only thing we have to do now is to place a plastic covering over the grow system. I'm using a black plastic covering. If you are in California or Florida or somewhere where it gets very hot, you don't want to use a black plastic covering. What you want to use is green or red. You're going to poke a hole where the fill tube is going to be with your finger, and then you're going to pull it down nice and snug. Then you're going to line up the plastic bag so that it's even all around the grow system, and then you're going to take your twine and you're going to wrap it around it within those grooves of that lip that you just saw, and then you're going to tie it. When it's time to plant your vegetation, you're going to want to take your utility knife and you're going to cut an X in the center as far away from the plant food as possible. It's not time for me to plant any of my tomatoes yet, so I can't show you. So I will verbally explain to you the process. Take the transplant. You're going to hold it up and you're going to try to guess the volume of potting mix that transplant is holding. You're then going to go to the grow system and you're going to try to remove the amount of potting mix that transplant is holding. Then you're going to put the transplant in the hole you just dug. When the plant is in the hole, you're going to want to take your hands and very gently push down on it. Try not to do damage to the roots or the stem. Well, the roots ain't that big of a deal because I usually rip apart some of the roots anyways to stimulate new growth. The important part is not to do damage to the stem. Then you're going to take some water and you're going to pour it all along the hole that you just dug. And then you're going to press down again on the plant. And then you're going to take some of the potting mix that you took out of the grow system and you're going to cover it back up around the plant. You're going to pour a little bit more water on it and then you're going to pack it down again. The objective is to try to remove any air pockets and replacing it with soil, or not soil but potting mix. I'm going to provide you 2 more videos. One of the videos is going to go over how to make your own potting mix. It'll save you a lot of money. The other video will go over an 18-gallon grow system. Now, it's not going to be step by step like you saw me do here, but you could take the same essence of what I've done here and apply it to what I'm going to show you in the next video as well.